In this video, we're going to solve quadratic equations by factoring, which also means finding the zeros. First thing we have to look at here is that when we talk about equations, there has to be an equal sign. Okay, so anytime you have an equation, you will see an equal sign. It has to be equal to something. And whenever we want to solve the quadratic equation, we have to equal it to 0. Now, to solve this equation, I have to factor. So you know how to factor this by using that trick that we saw in school. You make an x. In the top of the x, you write -8, your c value, and in the bottom of the x, you write your b value, which is -2. And then you find two factors of -8 that will multiply and give you -8. And those same two factors you add together to get -2. So you can make a list of -8. You can make a list of 8, the factors of 8, which is 1 times 8, 2 times 4. Which of these two pairs will work? 2 times 4 will work. So you write 2 and 4. When you multiply those factors, you get 8. But I want to get -8. So one of these two has to be negative, either the 2 or the 4. Which one do I choose to be negative? Since I need to add them together and get a -2, that means negative has to be here with the 4. 4 has to be negative. So let's check. -4 times 2 is -8, and -4 plus 2 is -2. So I have found the perfect combination of numbers that will factor this expression. And here's the setup. XX. This number 2, since it's positive, it's +2. And this number 4, since it's negative, it's -4. And remember, we have equal to 0. This comes down, and this comes down. All we did was rewrite this expression as the product of two factors in factored form. And now we use the zero product property that says if something times another thing is equal to 0, then this has to be equal to 0, or this expression has to be equal to 0. So we equal both of them to 0. I take the first one, x plus 2 equals 0. And then x minus 4 equals 0. And we solve for x. To solve for x here, I subtract 2 on both sides. Why do I subtract 2? Because I want to make this 2 plus -2, 0. So x is equal to -2. That's your first solution, or your first 0. And for x minus 4, to isolate x, we would need to add 4 to each side. X is equal to 4. And that's your second solution, or your second 0. And you're done. You found the zeros. Let's do the second example. Remember, whenever you're solving an equation, there has to be an equal sign, and we have to equal it to 0. So once you do that, you use the trick that we learned in class. Since a here is greater than 1, remember when a is greater than 1, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to multiply that a times your c. And you rewrite the expression without a equal to 3. You rewrite it as x squared minus 8x plus 3 times 4, which is 12, equals 0. And now you can do your x to find the factors that will multiply to make 12 and add to make -8. So what two numbers will multiply to 12 and add to -8? You can make a list of all the factors of 12. And they are 1 times 12 makes 12, 2 times 6 makes 12, 3 times 4 makes 12, and 4 times 3 makes 12, and I stop. The list is done. Once you reach a pair of factors that you already have, that means there are no more factors. So which of these pairs will multiply to 12 and add to negative 8? 1 and 12 will not add or subtract to 8. 2 and 6 will. So those are the two that I'm going to choose, 2 and 6. Now, I wanted to add to negative 8. So if I want negative 8, 2 has to be negative and 6 has to be negative so that they add and give you negative 8. If you multiply negative 2 times negative 6, you get a positive 12. So that's the pair that works. And then you set up your parentheses like that, and you fill it in with the numbers that you found, x minus 2 and x minus 6. Now we're not done here because since we multiplied times 3 in the beginning, now I have to go back and divide by 3. Okay, that's why we divide by 3 here. And we reduce the fraction to a whole number. So this first term, I cannot reduce this fraction to a whole number. So that means I'm going to take this 3 and I'm going to write it in front of this x. And this is what you get. You get 3x minus 2. You keep the 2 that was in the numerator. And then in this parentheses, I can reduce the fraction to a whole number, so I do that, and you get x minus 2. Because 6 divided by 3 is 2. And here you have factored this equation. Now remember, we have an equal sign that we need to bring down, and we have a 0. And now once you have factored it, I can find the solution, or the zeros. And what you do is you use the zero product property. That means you take that first parentheses, whatever is in there, and you equal it to 0. And you take the second one and you do the same thing. X minus 2 equals 0. And now you solve for x. To solve for x here, you have to first isolate 3x by adding 2 to each side. That will make 3x, this becomes 0, equals 2. And now you divide by 3 each side. So x is equal to 2 over 3. That's your first solution. That's your first 0. For your second term, to isolate x, you add 2 to each side. That makes 0, so x is equal to 2. 0 plus 2 is 2. Here is your second solution. That's your second 0. And there you have it. You're done. You found the 2 zeros. Try these on your own again and come back and watch the video and see if you get the same answer as I got. I'll see you in the next video.